chosen one, welcome. I'm grateful you are here with me tonight. Before we begin our journey into calmness, into silence, into that gentle space where your mind finally lays down its heavy thoughts, I want you to take a slow breath with me. Not for any ritual, not for any pressure, but simply because you deserve a moment where the world stops spinning, where the noise outside your heart pauses, and where your spirit feels held. Softly, as you settle in, I want you to know that this space is safe. This channel, this moment, this story exists for you. I created it so that even if the world felt overwhelming today, even if the day was loud or confusing, you would still have a corner of peace waiting for you. A quiet place to rest your mind. A place where your heart can loosen its grip on everything it has been carrying. So thank you, truly, for being here. I encourage you to stay with me until the very end. This entire journey is designed like a soft river flowing from stress into serenity, from thinking into resting, from wakefulness into deep sleep. Every part of this story plays a role in helping you unwind. So let yourself travel through it slowly, without rushing, without expectation. Tonight, I am not here as a storyteller, far away from you. I am here beside you, like a gentle companion, walking with you through a quiet forest just after sunset. The kind of forest where the air is cool but comforting, where the ground is soft beneath your feet, and where each breath feels like a whisper of peace brushing against your skin. As I speak to you, I want you to notice how your shoulders begin to relax, how your jaw slowly unclenches, how the muscles around your eyes soften without effort. You don't have to force anything. You don't have to pretend to be calm. You don't even have to try to sleep. Just listen and let the feeling of calm grow on its own, you know? Sometimes we forget that rest is not something we earn. It's something we are allowed to receive. And tonight, I want you to give yourself permission to rest, permission to breathe, permission to let go of everything, even if just for a little while. Before we enter the first Buddhist tale, even on the days when I feel overwhelmed, when my mind races, or when my thoughts become heavy, I've learned that peace doesn't always arrive suddenly. It comes quietly, like a small light under a door, slowly filling the room until, eventually, everything becomes gentle again. That is what I want to offer you. Now, small light, a beginning, a soft opening into stillness. So, if you can, lie down or sit back comfortably. Feel the weight of your body supported beneath you. Feel the air as it enters your lungs, slow, calm, natural. And then let it leave your body easily, without control, without tension. You are safe here. You don't need to be strong right now. You don't need to solve anything. This moment asks nothing from you. In a few moments, I will guide you into the first story, an ancient, peaceful tale whispered through generations of monks who understood the delicate nature of the human heart. A story meant not to excite, but to soothe, not to entertain your mind, but to ease your spirit into a gentle state of rest. But before we begin, let me tell you this. Tonight's journey is not just a story. It is an invitation to leave behind the weight of today, to soften the echo of old worries, to loosen the tightness inside your chest that maybe you didn't even realize was there. Stay with me. Let this night become a sanctuary for your soul. Breathe in the softness, breathe out the noise, and allow yourself to drift into a world where peace is not something distant, but something flowing gently toward you. Now that you are here, calm and present, we can begin. I remember the night I first stepped onto the path that would change my life, a path so quiet, so gentle, that it felt as if the earth itself was breathing beneath my feet. It was long ago, yet every detail returns to me whenever I close my eyes. Perhaps because that night wasn't merely an experience. It was a teaching, a turning point, a doorway into stillness I had never known before. I was exhausted, both in body and spirit. My mind felt like a crowded marketplace where voices shouted over one another, each worry louder than the last. I had spent years searching for peace, chasing it like a distant cloud I could never touch. And on that night, after miles of wandering, I reached a small mountain village where the air was cool and the lanterns glowed softly in the distance like floating fireflies. The villagers spoke of an old monk who lived just beyond the forest. They said he rarely came down to the village, but when he did, he carried an aura of such calmness that even the children stopped arguing and watched him in silence. Some called him a sage. Others simply said he knew the language of quietness better than anyone alive. And so, weary and desperate for rest, I walked toward the forest, letting the moon guide my steps. The forest greeted me with a silence so deep it felt alive. The wind moved gently between the leaves as if whispering secrets. Every sound, crickets, distant water, the rustle of branches blended into a soft, natural rhythm that made my heart slow down without effort. I followed a narrow trail until I reached a small hut, barely visible except for the warm glow of a single candle inside. I hesitated at the doorway. I wasn't sure if I should knock or simply turn back and sleep under the trees. But before I could decide, I heard a calm voice from inside say, "You may enter, traveler. You've carried your restlessness for long enough." I stepped inside. The old monk sat cross-legged on a woven mat, his posture straight, yet completely relaxed, as if gravity treated him differently. His face held many lines, but none of them looked heavy. They were lines of softness, like rivers carved gently into the earth over time. He didn't ask my name. He didn't ask where I came from or why I was there. Instead, he quietly motioned for me to sit beside him. "You look tired," he said, not with pity, but with understanding. Not the kind of tired that comes from walking, the kind that comes from thinking. I felt something inside me loosen the moment he said that. I hadn't spoken a word, yet he saw through me effortlessly. "I have been searching for peace," I admitted. "But everywhere I go, my thoughts follow me. I don't know how to quiet them." He smiled faintly, as if he had heard this 1,000 times and still found it tender. "Peace is not something you chase," he said. "It is something you learn to allow." I frowned slightly, not understanding. But my mind won't stop. It runs even when I want it to rest. The monk reached for a small clay bowl near his side. He filled it with water from a pot and handed it to me. "Hold this bowl," he said, "but don't move." I held it carefully. The water was still, reflecting the candlelight like a tiny golden moon. "Now," he continued, "start to walk around the room without spilling any." I slowly stood and began walking. With each step, the water trembled. Even the slightest shift caused ripples. I circled the small hut, returning to sit in front of him. "What did you learn?" he asked. "That the water moves with every step," I replied. "It doesn't stay still unless I stay still." He nodded. "Your mind is the same. When you move through life in a rush, the mind shakes. Even when you stop your body, your thoughts keep swirling because the momentum remains. Stillness is not only a moment, it is a direction." His words sank deep into me, like pebbles falling into a silent pond. "Sit with me," he said. "Just breathe, not to control the mind, not to silence it, only to create space." We closed our eyes. At first, my thoughts were a chaotic storm: memories, fears, expectations, doubts. They rose like wind-whipped waves. But the monk didn't ask me to push them away. He simply said, "Let them flow." A river does not force its water to stop. It allows it to pass. So I breathed, slowly, naturally, and with each breath, the thoughts began to soften. Not disappear, soften, like distant echoes losing strength. Minutes passed, maybe hours. Time loosened around us, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years: gentleness. The monk finally spoke again. "Tell me, traveler, what do you hear in this moment?" I listened carefully. The forest, the wind, my own steady breath. "I hear the night," I said softly, "and my breathing, and beneath that." I focused deeper. There was something else, a quietness underneath everything, like a soft presence holding all sounds together. I hear. Stillness, I whispered. He opened his eyes and smiled. Good. That stillness you feel right now is not outside you. It has always been within you. The mind sits on top of it, like clouds covering the sky. But beneath every cloud, the sky is always clear. I felt tears form without knowing why. Maybe because I realized how long I had been searching outside for something that lived inside me all along. He continued. People fear silence because they think silence means loneliness. But silence is simply space. Space where the heart finally breathes freely. I looked at him and asked, how can I walk with this stillness? How can I carry it when I leave this forest? He gestured toward the door. Come, he said, rising quietly. We stepped outside. The moon hung low, bathing the trees in soft silver light. He walked ahead and led me to a narrow path I hadn't noticed before. The path was covered in soft earth and tiny white flowers that glowed under the moonlight. This, he said, is the soft path of stillness. It is not a road you walk with your feet. It is a way you walk with your mind. I listened closely as he continued. All beings experience waves of thoughts, even monks, even teachers. But the one who has found stillness knows how to let the waves rise and fall without drowning in them. We walked slowly, our steps light on the earth. Whenever your mind feels chaotic, he said, return to the breath, not to escape life, but to return to yourself. Peace is not an escape. It is a homecoming. I asked, what if the worries come back stronger? He paused, looking up at the sky. Then let them come. Clouds can hide the moon, but the moon is never lost. In the same way, your stillness may be covered, but it can never disappear. It lives beneath everything. As we continued walking, I realized something. My thoughts weren't weighing on me anymore. They were present, but they didn't feel sharp. They passed like drifting leaves, touching lightly and then floating away. The monk looked at me gently. You see, he said, the mind doesn't need force. It only needs companionship. Walk with your thoughts the way you walk with a wind, without trying to shape it, without trying to stop it. We reached a small clearing where a stone sat beneath an old tree. He motioned for me to sit. The earth felt cool beneath me, grounding me in a way I had never known. Close your eyes again, he said, and listen. At first, I heard the forest, then my breath, then the soft rhythm of my heartbeat, and then nothing. A vast, open silence, not empty, but full of calm, full of space, full of gentle presence. It felt like standing at the edge of a great lake before sunrise. Quiet, deep, timeless. When I opened my eyes, the monk was simply watching the moon. His face was peaceful, as if he was listening to a song only the night understood. "This path," he said softly, "is always here, even when you return to the noise of life, even when you feel lost. Stillness is like a friend who never leaves. You need only remember to call it for the first time in years." I felt weightless, not because my problems were gone, but because they no longer controlled the rhythm of my heart. The monk placed a hand lightly on my shoulder. "Tonight, you learn the first truth of stillness, that peace begins with permission. Permission to pause, permission to breathe, permission to simply be." The night deepened around us, warm and quiet, and as I walked back toward the hut beside him, I realized something beautiful. I was no longer searching for peace. I was walking with it. When I woke the next morning, the forest was wrapped in a cool silver mist that drifted between the trees like wandering spirits. The old monk was already awake, sweeping the ground outside his small hut with a straw broom. He moved slowly, each stroke deliberate, as though he were brushing not just fallen leaves, but the dust from his own thoughts. I stepped outside quietly. He didn't look at me, yet somehow he sensed my presence. "Did you sleep well?" he asked, his voice still calm, warm like morning sunlight. "Yes," I replied, "better than I have in years." He nodded gently, as if he already knew. "Good. Your mind allowed itself to rest. Now, it will be ready to see more clearly." I followed him as he walked along a path I hadn't noticed before. The mist parted in front of him, as though it recognized him and bowed out of his way. We walked until we reached an open courtyard surrounded by ancient trees. In the center stood a wooden structure, simple, almost forgotten by time. Inside, it hung a single lantern. The lantern was unlike anything I had ever seen. It was old, so old, so old that its wooden frame was worn smooth by generations of hands. Its paper covering was faded, patched, and delicate. Yet it held a soft, golden glow inside it, like a gentle heartbeat. The monk stood before it, quietly. I sensed there was something sacred about it, something I didn't yet understand. "This," he said softly, "is the lantern of compassion." Allowing the silence between us to settle, he continued. "Long before I came here, long before even my teacher arrived, this lantern belonged to a monk who lived during a time of great suffering. Many people came to him with their grief, their fears, their losses, and every night he would light this lantern and place it where all could see it." "Why?" I asked. "Because he believed that compassion is a light meant to be shared." He would say that no matter how heavy one's heart becomes, the presence of kindness flash in the smallest flicker can soften the darkness. I stepped closer to the lantern. The warm glow pulsed faintly, as if breathing with emotion. The monk touched the wooden frame gently. "Look closely," he murmured. I leaned in. I noticed something etched into the wood, tiny lines, patterns, symbols carved so delicately that they were almost invisible. They formed a swirling design that reminded me of both flames and flowing water. "This lantern," it said, "has been touched by hundreds of hands. Some came here crying. Some came seeking forgiveness. Some came in anger. And some simply came because they had nowhere else to go. Each person left a mark knot on the lantern's surface, but in the light it carries." I felt something stir deeply within me, a softness like warm rain falling inside my chest. He continued, "Compassion is not a burden. It is not pity. It is not a debt. Compassion is the understanding that we all carry pain, and that sometimes what we need most is not a solution, but a light that tells us we are not alone." I remained silent, letting his words sink slowly into me. The monk then motioned for me to sit beside him on the wooden platform. The morning mist began to fade, revealing shafts of sunlight that broke through the trees like threads of gold falling from the sky. "Let me tell you a story," he said. I settled in, letting the gentle sounds of the forest swirl around us. "Many years ago, a young woman came to this place," he began. "She had lost everything: her family, her home, her sense of direction. She was drowning in sorrow, unable to see a way forward. Her heart was full of questions, none of which had answers. She came here." I asked. He nodded. "Yes, she walked barefoot through the forest, her eyes filled with tears. She told my teacher she had nothing left to offer the world." My chest tightened with empathy. I could almost see her in my mind, the dirt on her feet, the tremble in her voice, the weight of loss pressing down on her. "What did your teacher do?" I whispered. "He did not lecture her. He did not give advice. He did not ask her to be strong or to move on. Instead, he lit this lantern and placed it in front of her." The monk's eyes softened with memory. He said, "Sit with this light. Do not speak. Do not think. Just feel." And did it help her? He smiled gently. Not at first. She cried for hours, thinking the light mocked her loneliness. But eventually, something changed. She realized the lantern did not judge her. It didn't rush her. It simply existed with her sorrow, holding it gently, the way the moon holds the ocean. I closed my eyes, imagining the scene. The quiet night, the trembling light, a broken heart finding its first moment of rest after many days. The monk continued. She began to speak to the lantern. She told it her fears, her regrets, her longing for the ones she lost. And the light listened, always listened. Her tears stopped feeling heavy. They became soft, like rain falling on fertile soil. I felt a deep ache within me, ache that felt strangely cleansing. What happened to her? I asked. One night, he said, she lit the lantern herself and placed it where travelers could see it. She said, if this light could sit with me in my darkness, let it guide others in theirs. And so she stayed here, learning the art of compassion, learning that healing does not come from pushing pain away, but from holding it with tenderness. The forest grew quieter, as though listening with us, and eventually the monk added, she found her peace. She left this place after many years, not because she was running from sorrow, but because she was carrying compassion with her. And wherever she went, she lit lanterns in people's hearts. I sat there silently for a long time, watching the lantern in front of me. Why are you showing me this? I finally asked. He gazed at me gently. Because you, too, are carrying pain that you keep hidden. Pain that you believe no one should see. But compassion begins with yourself. If you cannot sit with your own suffering, how will you ever walk with peace? I swallowed. His words touched something raw inside me. But what if my pain is too heavy? He shook his head softly. Nothing is too heavy for compassion. Your pain is not a stone, it's a cloud. It feels solid when it hangs over you, but when held with kindness, it passes. He reached out and invited me to place my hands around the lantern. The wood was warm, almost alive. Close your eyes, he whispered. I did. Now imagine every sorrow you've carried, every memory that aches, every regret you've held onto, every wound that never healed. Imagine them sitting here, inside this light, not to be erased, not to be forgotten, but to be seen. As I held the lantern gently, I felt a sensation I couldn't explain. It was as though a soft warmth flowed upward through my hands, moving into my chest, loosening old knots I didn't realize were still there. My breath trembled. I feel exposed, I said. That is the beginning, he answered. Compassion comes when the heart stops hiding. I stayed like that for a long time, breathing with the lantern's warmth, letting the light touch the parts of me I had ignored, avoided, or buried at one point. A tear slid down my cheek, not from sadness, but from release, from the sheer gentleness of being allowed to feel. When I opened my eyes, the monk was watching me with the same calm expression he always had, as though he saw everything yet judged nothing. You see, he said softly, the light did not ask you to be perfect. It only asked you to be present. The forest breeze moved slightly, causing the lantern's glow to flicker. Whenever your heart feels heavy, he said, remember this lantern. Not the object, but what it represents. Compassion, patience, kindness toward yourself. I nodded slowly, feeling a quiet peace spreading through me. Tonight, the monk added, as we continue your journey, you will understand something deeper. Compassion is not something you give after you heal. Compassion is the very thing that heals you. The lantern glowing between us like a gentle sun dot, and in that soft, golden light, I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Warm sense of belonging, a quiet acceptance, a stillness that wrapped around my heart like a soft robe. Perhaps this was what compassion truly felt like, not dramatic, not intense, just a steady, gentle presence that said, you are allowed to feel. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to begin again. With the lantern of compassion glowing softly beside me, my journey toward inner peace deepened in a way I never expected. The monk guided me deeper into the forest as the sun slowly climbed above the treetops, its golden light spilling through the branches like warm silk. The morning air carried a delicate fragrance, wild jasmine, and something else I couldn't place, something ancient and calming, as if the earth itself exhaled serenity. I followed him silently, our footsteps soft on the moss-covered ground. We walked for a long time, neither of us speaking. The silence wasn't awkward, felt like a companion, a gentle presence walking beside us. Eventually, we reached a narrow wooden bridge covered in fallen petals. Their colors were faded, but they still looked beautiful, like memories resting peacefully rather than demanding to be remembered. Where are we going? I finally asked, my voice low so I wouldn't disturb the stillness around us. To a place most travelers never reach, the monk replied. Not because it is hidden, but because one must be quiet enough inside to notice the path leading there. We crossed the bridge, and as the last plank passed beneath our feet, I felt something shift, not in the world, but within myself. The sounds of the forest softened, becoming distant, like breaths fading into the horizon. Even my own thoughts seemed to settle, as if they too were listening. The monk stepped aside and motioned ahead. This is the garden of quiet whispers. I looked forward, and what I saw felt like stepping into another world. The garden stretched out like a living tapestry, woven with shades of mossy green and soft colors. Small stone paths wound between patches of flowers that moved gently in the breeze, whispering like old friends telling ancient secrets. There were trees with branches that curved gracefully toward the sky, their leaves fluttering in slow, rhythmic patterns. A narrow stream flowed through the center, so clear I could see each pebble resting on the bottom like tiny jewels. But what captivated me most was the sound, or rather, the absence of it. The garden felt alive, yet profoundly quiet, as if every leaf, every petal, every drop of water understood the importance of stillness. I stood there, unable to move, overwhelmed by a sense of deep peace. It felt like the world had paused just for me. The monk walked forward, his steps gentle. "Come," he said, "the garden will receive you." As I entered the garden, I felt a soft warmth spread across my chest, as though the air itself was comforting me. The silence here was not empty, was full, rich, like a soft fabric woven from countless moments of peace. "It is said," the monk began softly, "that the first monks who cared for this land planted seeds not for beauty, but for silence. They believe that every flower has a voice, and some voices are so gentle they can only be heard by those willing to be quiet." I followed him down a small stone path. With each step, the earth felt softer beneath my feet, as though cushioning my weight, inviting me to walk slowly, to breathe slowly, to exist slowly. We approached a small pond surrounded by smooth stones. The water's surface was so still, it looked like glass, so perfectly still that the sky and treetops, reflected in it, appeared more real than the world around me. The monk lowered himself onto a stone and gestured for me to sit beside him. "Observe the pond," he said. I watched as a single leaf drifted down from a nearby tree. It landed on the pond with the lightest touch, creating ripples that expanded outward in perfect circles. The ripples grew softer, gentler, until the water became silent again. "This pond," he said, "is like the mind. A single thought, even a small one, can disturb the surface. But if you allow things to settle, clarity returns on its own." We sat for a long moment, simply watching the quiet water. "Do you hear them?" he asked suddenly. "Hear what?" I whispered. He closed his eyes with a faint smile. "The whispers." At first, there was only silence. Then, slowly, subtly, I began to notice something, a faint sound, like distant murmuring. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't water. It was softer, deeper, resonating somewhere beyond my ears. "What is that?" I asked breathlessly. "The garden speaks," he said. "Not in words, but in presence. It whispers stories, memories, truths. But only hearts softened by stillness can understand them." I closed my eyes and let myself slip into that whispering quiet. The sound wasn't something to be heard, was something to be felt. A steady hum of life, a gentle rhythm, ancient and endless. As I listened, images began to form in my mind, might vivid, like dreams, but soft impressions. I saw a monk kneeling in the garden centuries ago, planting tiny seeds with hands that moved as reverently as if touching sacred scripture. I saw travelers who came here with burdens heavier than they could carry. And I watched as the garden accepted their sadness, the way a lake accepts rain without regiment. I saw children laughing, their small hands brushing the flowers, unaware that their innocence added to the garden's quiet power. And then I saw someone who looked very much like me, sitting beneath a cherry blossom tree with their eyes closed, tears falling not from pain but from release. The visions faded gently like mist dissolving in sunlight. I opened my eyes. "It's beautiful," I whispered. The monk nodded. When the heart grows quiet, it becomes receptive. Nature has always been speaking, but humans rarely listen. He stood and motioned for me to follow. We walked deeper into the garden until we reached a small stone bench beneath a tree whose branches spread out like open arms. Its leaves shimmered slightly, even though there was no wind. "This tree," he said, "is older than any monk who ever lived here. It has witnessed centuries of whispers. Sit beneath it. Allow it to show you what you need to see." I did as he instructed. The moment I sat down, an overwhelming sense of softness washed over me. My breath deepened naturally. My shoulders unclenched. Even my heartbeat slowed. The monk sat a short distance away, giving me space. For a long time, I simply sat there, listening to the quiet hum of the garden. Thoughts came and went, each one drifting away like petals on the stream. I didn't chase them. I didn't judge them. I just allowed them to be. And then, something unexpected happened. A memory surfaced, one I hadn't revisited in years. I was young again, sitting alone in my childhood room, feeling a loneliness I couldn't explain. Back then, I didn't know how to express fear or sadness. I simply held it inside, believing no one would understand. But as the memory unfolded, something changed. It was as if the garden was wrapping that younger version of me in a soft embrace, whispering gently that the loneliness I felt was not a flaw, but a tender reminder that all beings seek connection. I felt tears welling up, but they didn't come from sorrow. They came from compassion. The kind of compassion I had never given myself. "It is all right," the monk said softly from where he sat. "The garden shows you what your heart is ready to release." I wiped my tears with the back of my hand. I didn't know I still carried that. "You carried more than you realized," he said gently. "But now the garden carries it with you." I looked around at the trees, the stones, the flowers. I realized something profound. Everything here was silent, yet nothing was empty. Every whisper of the garden was filled with acceptance, with the quiet reminder that healing is not an event, is a gentle unfolding. The monk rose and approached me. "This garden teaches one truth above all others. When we grow quiet inside, life begins to speak to us in ways we have forgotten to understand. He placed a hand on my shoulder. "You are learning to hear again." I stood up, feeling lighter than I had in a long time. The garden felt like an old friend embracing me, as though it had been waiting for me long before I arrived. As we walked back toward the path that led to the monk's hut, I turned one last time to look at the garden. It shimmered under the gentle morning light, its whispers flowing like soft music only my heart could hear. The monk watched me silently. "Remember this silence," he said. "Carry it with you, and the world will feel different. Your steps will soften. Your thoughts will slow. And in moments of unrest, you will find your way back here within yourself." We left the garden of quiet whispers behind, but something inside me had changed forever. My heart felt wide open, spacious like a peaceful field ready to bloom. And as we walked through the forest, I realized something profound. Quietness is not the absence of sound. Quietness is the presence of understanding. And that understanding had finally begun to awaken in me. When I followed the old monk deeper into the heart of the monastery, I felt something different in the air, like a quiet pulse, a soft vibration that wasn't coming from the wind or the trees, but from the earth itself. It was late afternoon, and the golden light of the sinking sun spilled across the stone path like a warm invitation. The monk looked back at me with a smile so gentle it felt like a breeze brushing past my cheek. Slowly, he whispered, "Your steps. Let them soften." I didn't know what he meant at first, but as I took another step, something shifted. I didn't hear my own feet anymore. I didn't feel the weight in my chest anymore. I didn't even feel the pressure of the day sitting on my shoulders. It was as if the world was guiding me into a place that existed outside of time. We reached a wooden gate covered in green moss, and the monk pushed it open with a soft creak. What unfolded before me was unlike anything I had ever seen. Vast enclosed garden that felt like a world suspended between dream and reality. The air was cooler, fragrant with jasmine and something faintly sweet, like wild honey hidden somewhere in the leaves. The trees were tall but elegant, their branches bending slightly as if bowing in greeting, and flowers of colors so soft they didn't seem to belong to the same palette as the rest of nature. Pale blues, muted golds, gentle whites, and blossoms so delicate they trembled in the smallest whisper of wind. "This place," the monk said softly, "is where the world comes to rest." He stepped aside, letting me walk ahead, and as I did, the ground beneath my feet felt unusually warm, as though the earth itself remembered every step taken by weary souls before mine. There was a still pond, at the center of the garden, and the water was so clear it mirrored the sky like a polished piece of glass. But the more I looked, the more I felt that it wasn't reflecting the sky at all. It was reflecting me. Not my face or my body, but something deeper. My quietness, my tiredness, my unspoken longing. I walked closer, and the soft wind carried a faint whispering sound. At first, I thought it was just the rustling of leaves, but then I realized it was voices, gentle, distant, like echoes of memories long forgotten. I knelt beside the water, and the sounds grew slightly clearer. Words exactly, but feelings made audible. Joy, sorrow, gratitude, release. I looked back at the monk in disbelief, and he simply nodded, as if saying, "Yes, you're hearing correctly. This garden has listened to every heart that has rested here," he said. "But it does not speak in words. It speaks in whispers, quiet ones, softer than breath. Only when your mind becomes still enough, you begin to hear." A soft shiver passed through me, not of fear, but of recognition. It felt like the garden was breathing with me, matching my rhythm. My heart started to slow. My breaths became longer, smoother. For the first time in a long time, my thoughts began to lose their edges, dissolving like mist. The monk guided me toward a narrow stone pathway lined with small, glowing lamps, though they weren't candles or lanterns. They looked like tiny orbs of golden light growing directly from the ground. "These lights," he explained, "are placed here for one purpose: to remind the traveler that clarity does not come from pushing through the darkness. It comes from softening into it." As we walked, the whispers around me grew slightly louder, but not overwhelming. It felt like listening to a stream from afar, gentle, inviting, healing. The monk stopped beside a cluster of white blossoms shaped like miniature bells. "Touch one," he encouraged. I gently brushed my fingertip against a petal, and the moment I did, a wave of warmth rose slowly from my hand up to my arm, settling softly in my chest. It felt like someone was reassuring me, telling me I was safe to let go. "These flowers grow only in silence," the monk said. "They absorb whatever burdens you bring into the garden, but they do not react instantly. They wait until you are ready to release." I looked at the flower again, and somehow it felt like it was waiting for me to breathe out something I'd kept inside for too long. And without knowing why, I exhaled not just air, but a heaviness I had been carrying quietly in my heart. The whispering around me shifted, like a soft sigh of relief passing through the leaves. We continued along the path until we reached a stone bench under a willow tree, whose long branches brushed the ground like silky curtains. The monk gestured for me to sit. When I did, the whispers came alive again, not louder, but closer. surrounding me gently. It was comforting, like being wrapped in a warm blanket woven from the sound of peaceful memories. "Close your eyes," the monk said. "Do not try to silence your thoughts. Let them drift. Let them dissolve the way morning frost fades under sunlight." I closed my eyes, and the world dimmed into a soothing, velvety darkness. I felt the wind carry the scent of blossoms around me. I felt the soft shift of branches overhead. I felt the stillness of the pond somewhere nearby, like a steady heartbeat in the garden's chest. With every breath, I felt something inside me unwind. Not quickly, not dramatically, but like a tight thread, slowly loosening when you listen closely. The monk continued, "You will notice that the garden whispers not only what has been, but what can be. It teaches in silence. It reveals the path, not by showing, but by softening." It felt as though every worry I brought with me into this garden had become lighter as each deep breath dissolved a layer of heaviness inside me. The whispers blended into a soothing hum that felt more like a presence than a sound. A presence that held me gently, as if saying, "You can rest now." The monk let me sit quietly for what felt like hours, though I knew only minutes had passed. The longer I stayed, the more the world outside this garden faded away, its noise, its expectations, its constant pulling. All that remained was this peaceful place, the soft breath of leaves, and the gentle hum of silence flowing around me like warm water. Finally, the monk spoke again, his voice barely louder than the whispering leaves. "This garden is not here to give you answers," he said. "It is here to help you hear the answers that were always inside you." I opened my eyes slowly, and the colors of the garden seemed even softer than before, as though the world itself was exhaling with me. The pond's surface shimmered with gentle ripples, reflecting not the sky, but a version of me that looked calmer. Lighter dot, we rose from the bench, and the monk guided me back to the center of the garden, where the pond glowed faintly in the fading evening light. He placed his hand on my shoulder and said, "Before we leave, breathe once more. Not to take in air, but to release the weight you no longer need." I inhaled deeply and let my breath fall slowly out of me, feeling something warm and bright spread through my body. And in that moment, the whispers around me faded into silence, not because they disappeared, but because I no longer needed them to be loud. I could feel their presence even in the stillness. As we walked toward the gate, I looked back at the garden one more time. The trees seemed to bow again, the flowers swayed gently, and the air shimmered as though it held my breath, my release, and my quiet transformation within it. When the monk closed the gate behind us, I realized that the whispers had not stopped. They were still there, soft, subtle, woven into the fabric of my breath. It was then that I understood. The garden had come with me. Or perhaps I had always been carrying a part of it inside me, standing near the wooden steps of the small guest hut where I had slept, watching the sky turn from deep violet to pale gold. He approached silently, his steps as soft as falling petals. When he stopped in front of me, he didn't speak at first. He simply looked at the horizon, breathing in the cool air as though it carried a story he was preparing to share. Finally, he turned to me and said, "Today, you will climb." His voice wasn't commanding, but steady, like the way mountains themselves speak, firm, grounded, calm. I felt a quiet curiosity rise in me. "Climb where?" I asked. A small smile curved across his face as he pointed toward the far edge of the valley. There, beyond the mist and the tall monastery walls, I saw the outline of a mountain. It wasn't massive, but it was high enough that its peak was covered in drifting clouds. "That," he said, "is the mountain of letting go." Something inside me tightened with both nerves and anticipation. I didn't know what the climb meant or what I was supposed to release, but a part of me knew the journey was necessary. Without another word, the monk handed me a small, folded cloth. Inside it was a smooth stone worm, despite the cold morning. "Carry this," he said. "Hold it in your hand as you climb. When the moment comes, you will know what to do." We began the walk together until we reached the entrance of a narrow path that wound into the forest. He placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "From here," he said, "you go alone. The climb is not about reaching the top. It is about discovering what you have been carrying unknowingly." I nodded, unsure of what awaited me, but sensing that the monk's guidance was always precise, always purposeful. I stepped onto the path, and the moment I did, I felt the world shift. It wasn't dramatic, was subtle, like the way air feels different just before it rains. The forest was dense at first, but in a comforting way. The trees were tall and ancient, their roots gripping the earth like the fingers of old guardians. As I walked deeper, the only sounds were the soft crunch of leaves beneath my feet and the gentle call of morning birds. The stone in my hand felt warm and strangely alive, as though it was remembering something I had forgotten with each step. Memories began rising in me aggressively, but like bubbles surfacing quietly in still water. Fragments of moments I had pushed away for years. Faces, words, decisions I had buried under layers of distraction and busyness. I felt a small ache in my chest, not painful, but familiar. It was the ache of holding on too tightly. The path eventually began to slope upward, and the air grew thinner, cooler. Every breath felt deeper, every step felt heavier. But the stone in my palm remained warm, steady, reminding me to keep moving. The climb wasn't steep yet, but it asked for patience. It asked for awareness. It asked for presence as the sun climbed the sky. Beams of light filtered through the trees, scattering golden patches across the ground. I followed the light instinctively, letting it guide me forward. At one point, the path split into one side, looked smooth and easy. The other, rocky and uneven. I thought briefly about choosing the easier way, but something in me nudged toward the difficult path. Not out of stubbornness, but because I felt the mountain was teaching me something. Letting go rarely follows the smooth road. It follows the one that challenges your footing, your strength, your willingness to keep moving. I chose the rocky path. As I climbed, the trees gradually thinned, and I reached a clearing where the entire valley stretched out below me. The monastery looked small from there, like a hidden pearl nestled among green ridges. The wind brushed against my face, carrying with it the faint scent of pine and distant rain. I sat on a large stone to rest and looked at the stone, still warm in my hand. I turned it over slowly, noticing faint lines etched into it, lines that weren't visible before. They looked like cracks, but when I touched them, they felt like marks left by time, like memories. I closed my eyes and let my breath settle. And there, in the quiet, a thought surfaced, gentle but clear. What are you still carrying? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The mountain heard my silence and understood. The way I carried wasn't physical. It was made of old fears, regrets, unspoken grief, expectations I placed on myself, and expectations others had placed on me. The kind of weight that makes the soul tired long before the body. When I stood again, the path grew steeper. The stones beneath my feet shifted sometimes, but I kept my balance, each step deliberate. There were moments when I wanted to turn back, not out of exhaustion, but because the memories rising inside me felt too raw. But each time I paused, the stone in my hand pulsed with warmth, reminding me that this journey wasn't meant to break me, was meant to free me. Eventually, I reached a narrow ridge where the path became a single line carved into the mountain's side. I walked slowly, feeling the vast open space beside me, the wind brushing through my hair like a soft warning and an encouragement at the same time. When I reached the ridge's end, I found a wide, flat terrace that opened into a breathtaking view of the valley. In the center of the terrace stood a single tree, small, twisted but strong. Its branches were bare, except for a few golden leaves that shimmered like tiny suns. I walked toward it, sensing that this was where the mountain wanted me to stop. The wind grew still. The air felt sacred, as though the moment itself was holding its breath. I sat beneath the tree and closed my eyes again. The stone in my hand felt almost hot now, like it was urging me to listen. And then, in the quietness, the mountain spoke not in words, but in a feeling that rose from the ground up through my body. A feeling that said, "You have carried enough." My eyes welled with tears. I didn't even realize I had been holding back for years. They slipped out quietly, warm against the cool air. I felt my chest loosen in a way I had never felt before. Not broken, open. The stone's heat began to fade slowly, not cooling into emptiness, but returning to its natural state. I understood then, the stone had carried my unseen weight so I could reach this place without collapsing. But now, I no longer needed it. I rose to my feet, holding the stone gently one last time. I walked to the edge of the terrace where the wind waited, patient and steady. I didn't throw the stone. I simply opened my hand, and in the softest moment, the wind lifted it from my palm. Not upward, not outward, but softly downward onto the mountain floor, where countless others had released their weights before me. The instant the stone left my hand, something inside me shifted, something deep and profound, like a door opening after being locked for years. A lightness spread through my chest, my shoulders, my breath. It felt like letting go wasn't an action, but a returning to myself. I didn't know how long I stood there watching the valley. But when I finally turned to leave, the tree's golden leaves rustled gently, as if acknowledging my release. And the mountain behind me felt warmer, as though it had accepted what I had offered. The climb down felt different, easier, softer, as though the path was walking with me this time, guiding my steps rather than challenging them. The forest welcomed me with the same familiar scent, but it felt more vibrant, more awake, like someone had lifted a veil from my eyes. When I reached the monastery gates again, the monk was waiting for me. I didn't speak, but he saw the change in me instantly. He bowed his head slightly, and in that simple gesture, I felt understood in a way words could never express. "You have learned the mountain's lesson," he said softly. "Letting go is not losing. It is returning to the place where your heart can rest." As I walked past him, the sun was setting once again, painting the sky with soft shades of gold and rose. I breathed deeply, feeling the air settle peacefully in my chest. For the first time in a very long time, I felt truly light. Not because my burdens had vanished, but because I had finally loosened my grip on them. And in that quiet, luminous moment, I realized this simple truth. Sometimes the greatest freedom comes not from climbing higher, but from releasing what you were never meant to carry alone. As the last light of the day faded behind the distant hills, I found myself standing once again near the quiet edge of the monastery grounds. The sky stretched overhead like a vast, deepening ocean, each star slowly appearing as though shyly waking from its own slumber. A cool breeze drifted across the stone courtyard, brushing lightly against my face, carrying with it the scent of incense, old pine wood, and something soft that felt like the memory of peace. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the air wash over me, letting it soften the edges of the long journey I had taken. The monk approached without a sound, his presence gentle and familiar, like a lantern glowing quietly in the dark. He didn't speak right away. Instead, he stood next to me, both of us looking toward the horizon where the last hints of sunlight melted into the deep blue of night. After a few breaths, he said, in a voice so soft it blended almost seamlessly with the wind, "Tonight, you rest. Not the rest of the body alone, but the rest that reaches the deepest corner of the heart." His words seemed to settle into the air, lingering between us like a warm cloud. I followed him to a small wooden platform beneath an old cedar tree. A mat had been placed there, woven from straw and soft cotton threads. The monk gestured for me to sit, and as I lowered myself, I felt the texture of the mat beneath my palms, firm yet gentle, grounding yet comforting. "Lie back," he whispered. "Let the earth hold you." I eased myself into a lying position, my back sinking slowly into the mat, my head resting on a small pillow filled with herbs that smelled faintly of lavender and white lotus. The air around me grew still, as though the night itself was leaning in to listen. My muscles softened without effort, loosening in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. The monk remained seated beside me, his presence steady and reassuring. "Close your eyes," he said. "You are not here to think anymore. You are here to drift." I let my eyelids fall gently shut, allowing darkness to spread across my vision like ink dissolving into water. In the distance, crickets began their night song, their rhythmic chirps blending with the soft whisper of leaves moving in the breeze. It all felt distant, yet present, like a lullaby sung by the world itself. "Breathe," the monk said softly. "Not to control, not to change anything, simply to feel the breath move through you." I inhaled slowly. The air entered my lungs like cool silk spreading through my chest, expanding the space inside me. Then I exhaled, and the release felt warm, gentle, familiar. I repeated the breath again, each one slower, each one sinking deeper into my body. With every inhale, my chest lifted like the tide rising at dawn. With every exhale, my body sank like a wave folding back into the sea. The monk placed one hand lightly on the ground, as though anchoring the moment. Let the breath soften, he whispered. Let it become the quiet current that carries you. I felt my breath becoming quieter, almost invisible, as though it had shifted from something I was doing to something that was happening through me. My arms grew heavier, my legs warmer, my eyelids softer. Feel your body melt into the earth, he murmured. Feel the weight releasing from your shoulders, from your chest, from the place where thoughts gather when you worry too much. His voice flowed like water, slow, calm, endless. You have climbed. You have wandered. You have learned. And now it is time to rest the way mountains rest, silent, steady, held by the sky. My mind began to drift, not in sharp thoughts, but in gentle visions. I saw the garden again, the delicate flowers swaying in moonlight. I saw the still pond, reflecting stars, as though holding pieces of the universe within its calm surface. I saw the mountain I had climbed tall, serene, ancient, standing like a guardian over the valley. Let the images drift. The monk said softly, as though sensing where my mind was traveling. Do not hold them. Do not follow them. Let them pass like clouds, like soft memories fading as they float farther away. I breathed out slowly, and with that breath, the images loosened, dissolving gently into the darkness inside my mind. The monk continued speaking, each word wrapped in warmth. Now, bring your attention to your feet, he whispered. Feel them growing heavy, warm, relaxed. My toes softened. My heels sank deeper into the mat. It felt like warm sand was softly piling over them, grounding them without weight. Now your legs, he continued. The muscles of your calves, your knees, your thighs. Let them loosen. Let them release everything they've been holding. My legs felt like they were sinking into a warm pool, my breath guiding the sensation deeper. The tension melts, he murmured, like snow under the sun. He let a few moments pass before his voice returned, even softer now. Now your hands, your palms, your fingers, feel them relax, as if they remember they no longer need to grasp anything tonight. My hands warmed gently, the fingers naturally curling in the most effortless way. The air felt thick and soft around them, like cotton. Your arms relax, from your wrists to your elbows, from your elbows to your shoulders. The weight lifts, the softness remains. I felt warmth spreading through my arms, as if someone draped a light blanket made of sunlight over them. My shoulders seemed to slide down naturally, sinking toward the mat. Now your chest, he whispered. Feel the rise and fall. Slower now, smoother now. Each breath unties a knot you didn't know was there. I noticed how my chest felt open, like a door slightly ajar, letting a breeze pass through your neck. Your jaw, loosen them, the monk said. Let the jaw drop slightly. Let the tongue rest softly. Let the neck release its tired stories. My jaw softened until I almost felt it disappear into the silence. My neck elongated subtly, as if it were no longer asked to hold the weight of the day. And now, he whispered, your face. Let your forehead smooth. Let your eyes drift deeper inward. Let your cheeks rest. Let the space between your eyebrows open like a tiny sky. My face softened into something peaceful, something childlike, something unburdened. Good, he whispered. Now, the final breath before you drift. I inhaled gently, the air entering me like the tide whispering across soft sand. I exhaled slowly, feeling the breath fall away like a feather drifting from my hand. You are safe, he said. You are held. Tonight, the world asks nothing of you. The sounds around me seemed too quiet even further. Or maybe I was sinking deeper into a place where the world was made only of warmth and softness and the gentle rhythm of my breath. The monk began to hum, just a low, steady tone, almost like the sound of wind passing through bamboo. The vibration seemed to settle above me, around me, and finally inside me. It wasn't a song with notes. It was a sound meant to cradle the spirit as he hummed. My thoughts faded into distant echoes. My body felt weightless, as though it had become part of the air. My breath became a gentle thread, weaving slowly through the darkness behind my closed eyes. Imagine, the monk whispered, you are lying at the edge of a quiet lake. Instantly, I saw it not clearly, not sharply, but like a soft watercolor vision. A lake so still, it seemed to be holding its breath under the moonlight. I lay beside it, feeling the soft earth beneath me, feeling the cool air on my skin. The water reflects the stars, he said softly, and the stars reflect your calm. The lake shimmered softly in my mind. The moon floated like a silver lantern above it. The night wrapped around me like a warm cloak. You hear nothing, the monk said, not because the world is silent, but because the peace inside you has grown so deep, it has silenced everything else. My body felt as though it were drifting at the edge of sleep, suspended gently between awareness and dreams. Let the lake hold your worries, he whispered. Let the moon carry your thoughts. Let the night cradle your breath. Each word felt like a soft hand guiding me to a deeper layer of calm. Now, it continued, imagine a soft floating light above your chest, not bright, just warm, like a lantern made of quiet joy. A soft, golden glow formed in my vision. It hovered above my chest, pulsing gently with my breath. With every inhale, he whispered, "The light grows warmer." I inhaled. The light brightened softly. With every exhale, it grows quieter. I exhaled. The light dimmed into a soft, soothing glow. "This light," he said, "is the peace you found in the garden, the courage you found on the mountain, the stillness you found in silence." The light drifted slowly downward, sinking into my chest. I felt a wave of warmth spreading through me, gentle, healing, complete. You are guided by the quiet wisdom of everything you have learned. Let the night deepen. Let your breath slow even more. My breathing softened until it felt like a quiet rhythm far away, happening on its own. My mind floated like a feather suspended in still air. "If sleep calls you now," he murmured, "follow it. Drift into it. Trust it. Let it hold you the way the earth holds mountains, the way the wind carries leaves, the way calm carries the tired heart." The air around me felt heavy with softness, thick with quietness. My body no longer felt separate from the mat, felt like part of it, as though the earth itself was holding me in a gentle embrace. The monk's voice grew even softer, like a fading echo. "You have nothing left to do tonight. You have nowhere you must go. You have nothing to solve, nothing to fix, nothing to carry." My mind drifted deeper into the quiet. "There is only this breath," he whispered. "This moment, this peace." The world seemed to stretch into darkness and warmth, the perfect cradle for sleep. "Rest," he said. "Rest deeply. Rest completely. The night will hold you now." His presence, though still near, felt like it was dissolving into the air. Or maybe I was drifting away. I felt myself sinking into warmth, into stillness, into something endless and soft. The monk's final whisper floated through the darkness like a feather drifting on a silent breeze. "You are safe. You are home. Drift now into the quiet where dreams rise like gentle moonlight." And with that, my mind released its last thread of awareness, drifting softly, effortlessly into peaceful, boundless sleep.